Welcome, everybody, to Keep the Line Moving Football Week as we continue previewing Super Bowl 58 between the Kansas City Chiefs and the San Francisco 49ers. Earlier this week, we had Greg Papa on, the play-by-play broadcaster for the 49ers. He was fantastic, providing insights on both the game, the 49ers, and his awesome career. Today, we have David Tyree as our guest. That's right, you recognize that name. The former New York Giant wide receiver, responsible for one of the most famous plays in Super Bowl history, the helmet catch. Eli Manning scrambles. He throws. Tyree jumps up, makes the catch. Rodney Harrison with incredible defense, but Tyree holds on. The Giants go on to defeat the then undefeated New England Patriots 17-14 in Super Bowl 42. Where were you on February 3rd, 2008 when that catch occurred? We're going to talk to David about the catch, what he's doing now, growing up, coming out of Syracuse, a sixth-round pick. What is David Tyree doing to make sure that that catch has a lasting impression on folks in a positive way? Fascinating conversation. And, of course, we talk about Super Bowl 58, previewing the 49ers and the Chiefs. David has his thoughts. The conversation begins now with David Tyree. All right, David. This is wonderful. What a great time of year for you. A great time of year for all of us football fans, but I have to think that it's wonderful for you because you're a world champion with the New York Giants. Do you start to feel different in your body as we get closer to the Super Bowl each and every year?
I think I feel different in my body because I'm getting older and older, 15 years removed from the helmet catch. But no, it's an exciting time of the year without a shadow of a doubt. Amazing matchups through championship weekend, and now really anticipating just you talk about iconic franchises. You're talking about the lore of Patrick Mahomes, and this year's Super Bowl is going to be amazing.
That's so interesting that you bring up the matchups, and they were amazing. Championship weekend was fantastic. You've got those heavy hitters, the Ravens going against Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, and everybody with the Kansas City Chiefs. And then on the West, you've got the 49ers battling against the upstart Detroit Lions with a great narrative. Did you think, did it work out the way you thought it would, or are you a little bit surprised with those outcomes?
I felt like this was the year to beat Kansas City. I felt like the Bills would get them. Last year was my crowning moment for Patrick Mahomes. You're looking at the offense, obviously, with the departure of Tyreek Hill. When you're looking at Patrick Mahomes last year, and even more so this year, you were really looking at few weapons, right? And you're talking about a premier dynamic talent where everything is continuously on his shoulder. I felt last year with him and Travis Kelce was amazing, and it was a big crowning moment for him as the elite of the elites. And I wasn't expecting him. Looking at their offense, the drops going on early in the year, they were really couldn't find much of a rhythm. Travis Kelce was good, but he wasn't his best throughout this year. But boy, here we are in the playoffs, and they're back in the Super Bowl again. He has the Lions' heart. He has the pedigree of an absolute champion, and he's positioned himself earlier than expected to be in these greatest of all time conversations.
Absolutely. Travis is amazing. Number 87 always seems to find a way to get open. It's amazing. But let's look at Mahomes here for just a second. He has that look in his eye. You can't deny that. That he will not be denied. He has the championship pedigree. Do you see that too, David? And have you seen that in other athletes throughout your journey?
Honestly, there's not that many at that level, I would say, right? And I feel like, it takes a little while there's really a separation, right? There's a small group of people like a Patrick Mahomes, like a Tom Brady, like a Peyton Manning that have that propensity and that drive that can elevate every single one on that team. This is not, this is an emerging offense for the Kansas City Chiefs, I would say. Isaiah Pacheco, year 2, really, solid running back, but he's not a Pro Bowl talent. He's not LaShawn McCoy in his prime. This is Patrick Mahomes demanding that his players make plays, positioning them and demanding them. Even when they drop the ball, right back to him, positioning them to rise up to the moment. And it's really, really special to watch that level of play because you can't say, oh, man, well, look at, you got the other side, Brock Purdy. He's got Deebo Samuel. He's got Christian McCaffrey. He's got this guy. And Brock Purdy obviously had an amazing performance to elevate his team as well and elevate himself. but that's not the story of Patrick Mahomes. And here again, with all the arrows on their back as a defender, as a Super Bowl defender, they're back in it again against all odds, I would say.
So, David, and I love talking to you about this because I can see it lights you up as well. I
Yeah.
mean, it's just such a fun time of year. Let's look at this. So you've got the 49ers now, right? So they're like the Chiefs, right? Every other year, it seems like the 49ers are back in the
Right.
big game. So you look at the makeup of that team, and you mentioned Debo and Christian McCaffrey and other receivers that support that offense, the offensive line, for goodness sakes, and then now the defensive line, my God, with Bosa and everybody. How are they going to match up? I know I'm cutting to the chase, but and then I want to talk about coaching, and then I want to get to your story, which is tremendous. But how do they match up? They seem to be incredibly balanced attacks, the Niners and the Chiefs.
Yeah, I think what has been special about the Chiefs' run is that it's been tremendously sound team football, complementary football. The defense does not get enough credit. All pros and Snead, obviously Chris Jones, who's highlighted defensive line for so many years, but they play complementary football. Justin Reed on the back end, Steve Spagnuolo, who obviously I know very well in his time, he has really gathered the group competitively. Whereas the Niners got a bunch of superstars. They are loaded throughout the box. They are the favorite from a talent perspective, in my personal opinion, whereas the Chiefs are the champion. 49ers haven't crossed that that hump of winning a Super Bowl in quite some time, so they should be drooling at this opportunity. And it's going to be very difficult because Patrick Mahomes is just an imposing figure. His will, his competitive drive always gives them a chance and an opportunity, so they're going to need to play their best football regardless of the talent.
Okay. You mentioned Spags, right? But then you've got Andy Reid and Kyle Shanahan. My goodness, top of their field, right? Look at their longevity. Look at how their coaching trees, and look where Kyle has come from, his father. There's so many subplots to both of these head coaches. How do you see them matching wits on Sunday?
Experience does matter. I mean, if you want to talk about if this is going to come down to a tight game, I got an old Big Red. It's hard to go against the big guy. And it would be a massive disappointment for the 49ers organization because you can't build a better roster through the years with led to Kyle Shanahan. I don't know if it positions them to question Kyle Shanahan, but you certainly, when you look at the caliber, the moves through the year, the competency on defense, in and out of coordinators. So that's complementary work between two parties. But man, you are talking about Chase Young addition toward the end of the year. They have done everything to earn the right to be here. They need to be here and they need to win. So there's definitely more pressing on Kyle. But as far as legacies and experience, you got to go Big Red.
All right. You just Chase Young and Bosa coming at you. But Patrick probably is right now in the gym. I'm sure you saw that documentary on quarterbacks. My God.
Yeah.
Hard work, that young man.
It's special to watch because he's got a good spirit about him. It was sad to know that Ben McAdoo, while I was there in the front office, really wanted Patrick. And who knows? Imagine Patrick Mahomes playing for the New York Giants, but no need at this point.
All right, but I know somebody who did play for the New York Giants, and I'm looking at him right now. David, yeah. I couldn't wait. First of all, it's been great to meet you and get to know you, but it's also wonderful to have this conversation.
Sure.
It's one of those things where you don't know where to start, but I will just say this, that the helmet catch has its own Wikipedia page, which I find really interesting. Let me ask you this. What do you call it?
I call it the helmet catch. I call it the helmet catch, and I call it Catch 42. I actually own those two trademarks. Those are my two favorites. I remember the naming rights early on, right after the Super Bowl. And I just think it's just simple and it's fitting. The White Clark catch needs to stay there, the catch, And there was a lot of stuff like that. And I just, it's the helmet catch. It's the original. It's the most memorable. And I obviously think it's the best play ever in NFL history.
Okay, David, let's look at this. So you have a podcast. It's called Catch the Moment. So I've enjoyed many episodes of it. And sometimes you'll ask the guest, where were you when the helmet catch took place? Which I think is genius. And I applaud you for doing that. So I'm going to answer the question for you. You just set me up perfectly.
Nice.
I was, I think, 13 years old when Dwight Clark made his catch in the end zone from Joe Montana against the Dallas Cowboys to propel them into their first Super Bowl where they beat the Bengals. I remember being with my cousin next to me, my cousin Tim, who I love very much. We went crazy. I also remember where I was for your catch. I was sitting with
Nice.
my wife. My son was 6 months old. We were, taking care of him. And I looked at it and I said, the Giants are going to win this game. The Giants are
Mm.
going to give the Patriots their first loss because of David Tyree and Eli Manning. I think this is fantastic. Okay, what was your mindset going into the huddle when that play was called? Set us up. When Eli comes in and he calls the play, tell us.
Sure. Sure. It was 76 Max YSL Union. And that it was a great call. New England ran a lot of cover, we call it 42, with his 4 on one side, 2 on the other. So we got a 4-beater and a 2-beater. And we kind of lined up with the recon, and I've got a sail post over the side. If they actually bite down on out, maybe we can throw it over the top. And that's actually how it worked out. So, I almost got to thank the offensive line for not blocking well, because, maybe Eli would have threw it over the top and we would have got a big play in a different way. And they wouldn't call me a one-hit wonder. I'd just make a big play. But no, even better, obviously it was a lot of improv, a lot of resiliency, a lot of resolve. Two guys who were born on January 3rd, playing way above and the X's and O's. Eli, he finds a way to escape 2 or 3 Patriot defenders. I'm the black guy who can't jump, and the 4th wide receiver who plays special teams and no one knows, and end up making this wildly contested, which I didn't know was on my helmet. So it was just the thing that this is what sports is all about. Metaphoric moments that really speak to the resiliency, the championship drive, that what you love. When everything's on the line, who's going to rise up? I was fortunate to be a part of the narrative.
So let's go over this. So Eli comes into the huddle, he calls the
Yep.
play, and you just analyzed wonderfully what went down. So the offensive line had some issues, right? The rush is on, Eli scrambles, he throws, Rodney Harrison's on you, and you said something that I'm sure you've said in many keynotes and conversations since then. You did not know you had the ball. When did you know you did have the ball?
I knew I had it. I did not know it was on my helmet. So, traditional wide receiver coaching, you got a ball that's up in the air. You want to jump to catch the ball. You want to high point it. So I kind of position myself pretty well. He throws it up, chariots of fire style, slow motion. And as I go up, I'm mentally preparing myself to be hit. I felt like I was open, but wouldn't last long. And I had those 2 hands on the ball. And as the contact came, I felt that one hand get detached. And then eventually I just remember, as I'm going back, I secured it again. I got it, not letting go. Let me secure it. And that was it. And I had to get up and I had to look and see who the personnel was. Next thing you know, Kevin Boss is coming in and I'm out. So I never got a chance to see a replay until we actually got back to the hotel. I didn't even see it at the initial interview. So I gave Eli all the credit. And I say, give him just a little bit of that back, just a little bit back, a little bit. We can share. We good. We both made miraculous plays, but it was special to be a part of. And honestly, when you hear plays like that, you don't have this perfect expectation, because certain things have to happen coverage wise. You don't know what's happened, but you're just in the moment. You're locked in. And I was grateful that he didn't despise little old David Tyree sitting over there in the middle of the field. He said, let me give this kid a shot.
David, as you're coming down with the ball, and the chariots of fire analogy, I love that. You're coming down with the ball, Harrison's on you, you hit the ground, the crowd goes crazy. It was played in Arizona, 71,000 fans. What was the roar of the crowd? And do you remember what you were feeling as you got up, handed the ball to the ref, and knew that you came out, there was a substitution, as you explained. What was that feeling coming from down, up, and exiting the field?
No feelings. I'll be honest, right? It's really, I can remember securing the ball. Rodney is doing his best to yank this thing out of it. And the funniest thing happens is Steve Smith is a rookie wide receiver, emerging talent for the Giants. And Steve comes up in there, and Steve is like my bodyguard, my little, he's like a little mini me. And he's just drilling Rodney. And I'm just so locked in the moment, because it's a 2-minute drill, right? So for me, because I'm not in every single personnel group, I literally got to lock in, get to the sideline, and next thing you know, I'm out, high five my boys, and I'm here because the worst thing for a competitor is to have their best performance and to lose the game. And so until that thing says 0-0-0, I am so locked in, so, waiting for that moment. Obviously, it was great when Plaxico scored the touchdown, but it was just as terrifying when Tom Brady's heaving those suckers 60 plus yards through the air to Randy Moss. So it wasn't until the end of that game, and I was fortunate to be in victory formation where all the feelings just released. And it was all, man. I was awestruck. I was amazed. And it's the perfect gift. It's the dream that you never imagined coming to pass.
But David, you earned it. People forget in 2005, right? You were a Pro Bowl, you were a special team standout. You came from Syracuse, you were a 6th-round draft choice.
Mm-hmm.
You earned it. Do you see it that way? Do you see that the preparation and the life challenges, right? Let's be honest.
Sure.
You, like all of us, you've had your life challenges. Were you prepared for that moment when it took place?
Yeah, I think it's definitely partial, right? There's a part where I paid the price. I paid the price, but it wasn't just in the season. It was all the opportunities that I actually earned by competitive. You actually talk about that third year. I won the third wide receiver position that year. I climbed my behind from the space of being announced as a 6th-round special teams player who they never imagined would even have a shot, to winning a third wide receiver position in the National Football League, which is considerable time, to having to come back down. So when I look at my entire journey, that was the dues paid. And the reward was enduring that. The reward was, obviously I lost my mom that season. It was a lot of battles that I had to overcome. And what I realized was being perfected in that time was who I was as a person. I realized that some, attitudes and reflections and like, you know what? How not just I'm going to go through hard things, but how I'm going to go through the difficult things. And that is what I really began to find true contentment in, knowing that, when I give my best, when I compete to the highest of my ability, I'm going to live with the results, be at peace, and trust God for the best. And so that I'm not just, my attitude isn't already, that I'm not not complaining, not murmuring, but really being the best teammate, being the best leader, be the best contributor, and mastering what I'm in control of and trusting with the rest.
So the play took place, the helmet catch took place February 3rd, 2008. So let's look at this. February 3rd, 2008 at 8 a.m., you were one person. February 4th, 2008, the next morning, you were obviously a different person. What was that like? How did the play change your life? And when did you realize that it would change your life?
I will be honest. It took me a while to realize the depth of that moment. So I knew, when I got requested for media the next day, that's never happened. It was like, I was like, they couldn't wait. I was like, I definitely did not understand the gravity of the moment, and it took quite some time. If I could be 100% honest, it's pretty profound. And one striking moment was getting the chance to, of course, meet Steve Sable, God rest his soul. And the way he said, he said, this is the greatest play in Super Bowl history. And I said, wow, when Steve Sable goes forth and says this is the greatest play, that really means something, right? And he talked about some of the reasons why, the romance, the gravity of the moment. And I just said, man, well, I got probably the best sign off. But there were even moments beyond that, because I knew that God had a place to play in my own life, as far as like, that's something that you prepare for, but that's not something that you just do. That's not something, the gravity of the stage, that's not something that I can go create. I wasn't in the, OBJ been catching one-hand catches all through college on the jug machine. I can't say I was out here, practicing to slam a ball on my helmet. So I knew that there was a space of humility I needed to keep and honor, but at the same time, enjoy the moment. I've earned it through showing up every single day. It might not be a helmet catch, but there's something of tremendous value, significance that we can position ourselves for as we endure some of those trials and tests, and find a way to overcome them and bear the right heart, right mind, and learn the lessons we need to learn.
A note on your Steve Sable comment there. The NFL celebrated their 100th season, right? That play was declared number 3 in the greatest 100 plays in NFL history. that's above and beyond Super Bowls, my friend. So
Yeah,
that's a little footnote to the Sable. But what you just said there, David, what you're saying now is that moment happened. You had a moment in time and some time to adjust to what it meant to you. But
sure.
now your messaging is to help others. And that's safe to say, correct? That's what you're saying right now.
Absolutely. I mean, life is very interesting. Obviously, different people assume different spaces that inspire, motivate, equip or call to action. And I really feel like, everybody's looking for a moment of validation, a moment of meaning, something to define themselves by. I was really good as a special teams player, but I wanted that validation of my peers amongst my peers. And it didn't come easy. And honestly, it didn't come until that moment. And it was very interesting when you have a significant space, you want to build off of that moment to really ensure. And I had to deal with some of the challenges falling down off that cliff that came not too long. So I really believe that there are certain experiences that life is positioning us for. There's certain tests and trials that are more meant to cultivate who we are, give us assurance that there's some promises appointed to us, there's some purpose that we have to accomplish. And I've been fortunate to have this dynamic moment through the sport that I've loved, that has shaped and purpose in my youth, to provide a platform to offer hope, inspiration, significance, guidance, and just to position me to relay those lessons that have shaped who I am as a husband, as a father, as a competitor, as a worker, and just pass them on down. So it gives me a pillar to really preach from, for lack of better terms, and help people be able to recognize the opportunities to build their own story, to recognize their own moments.
So you worked for the Giants, your former team, for a number of years in their front office. Was this part of your messaging to players? In other words, here's how you could fight to get on the roster, fight to stay on the roster, then fight to get moments, create your moments, creating opportunities. But that's my interpretation. How did you go about your daily work with the Giants in the front office?
It was great working in athlete development, leadership development. And, my messaging was primarily through, spent a lot of good time with the rookie and second year players and throughout all the players on and off the field. So it was always a part of the messaging, but it's really about how to transition into the life of a professional, right? When you're the best in the world at something, but you're still inexperienced in life, how do you gain skills, gain insight, gain perspective and understanding in life, but also now as a professional, right? Going from amateur to professional. So, of course, my story, even as a special teams player, resonates. You have to get good at something quick. This is one of my biggest things, even for young people moving out of college. Get a definable skill that adds value everywhere you go, right? Get a definable skill. So for me, it was special teams, right? I knew that was what was going to get me in the door. I felt confident that I had other skills and abilities to bring to the table, but you have to be able to prove some value that gets attention and says, man, we need this person. So that's one of the foundational things on the field, but also that applies to any area in the marketplace. So when you have a team element, it allows you to, call it a specialization. What are you bringing to the table that makes you feel or be realized or recognized that you're irreplaceable? Because at the end of the day, everyone's looking to replace you for just a good value or for less money. That's practical in relation to being profitable. And so it's the competitive nature of the individual, understanding the competitive nature of the industry. And it was simple life lessons like that can really help give guys the perspective to recognize the moment, but also tread forward to how to build their careers on and off the field.
David, did you know what you just said there? Because that is so much wisdom for anyone, as you said, but really young people trying to, I want to work in sports, or, I want to work in this. I say the same thing, but you beautifully articulated it. You said you have to provide value. You can love this. You can love to want to work in sports, but you're telling them to hone in on something specific to your
Yep.
unique gifts that you can give to that franchise or that department or that job.
There you
My
go.
question to you is this: were you this acutely aware of your message prior to the helmet catch, or was it an evolution of the man that became David Tyree?
I think there was a good sense of awareness. I fit this dynamic in my leadership journey. Self-awareness was my superpower. And it's interesting because there are always hierarchies and levels even within teams, right? Like superstars, um, you know, starters, role players, right? And of course, when you're a superstar, you have so much influence. And being a special teams player, or especially in my era where there was no social media, right? Like I was all pro, and there was barely any opportunities for an all pro special teams player, right? Like, so it was a different time. So influence was definitely shaped differently. But I think the authenticity of my drive always caught the respect of my peers. And it spoke to other emerging guys looking for opportunities, but they also saw the ups and downs. They saw me as a third wide receiver. So the people who were my teammates, they understood it. So by the time I got to that point, I certainly had credibility to be able to share some of that insight, give guys that. But 5, 6, 7 years was all I had. So, I think there was more authority by the time I get to the helmet catch. I experience these declines and I'm able to insert myself back into it because now I'm not just known as a guy who ran out on kickoff. I'm the guy that made the greatest catch in Super Bowl history, but I tell you how I got there. So it's really a neat journey in relation to, that moment validates everything, but it was so much more than that moment. It was really everything leading up to that moment, even down to high school and all the poor decisions of a silly teenage kid, and being able to not lose sight of a vision that I didn't even realize really existed.
What did Coach Coughlin say to you? I can't believe I haven't asked you that question when you came off.
You know what? Not much. I think it was just such. I think I'm so proud. We share the Syracuse bond. He's watched my life transform. When he came to the Giants, I had just gotten arrested. I was a special teams maven, just got arrested. He inherits my mess. And I'm like going through this massive life transformation where, it was positive, but it's like, who's this kid? And he's Tom Coughlin. So I think he watched me grow up. He watched me mature. He watched the ebbs and flows. Even, he was my coach. I win a third wide receiver position. I get demoted, all this stuff. And so I think there was, and he actually was one of the primary people who embraced me when my mother passed. So I think he couldn't be more proud in relation to knowing the man and what I endured to get there. And those are the sentiments I always get whenever I get a chance to see or speak with Tom Coughlin.
It's really cool, and the fan is coming out of me. Listen, I grew up a diehard 49er fan, so I didn't really enjoy the Giants. I'm gonna be honest. Yeah.
Me too, buddy. I used to hate the Giants. Hey, we're together.
We have a lot in common, and that's another thing. And so I didn't know that about you, but that's interesting. So my point is this, though, but I have a love and appreciation for the game and people that were instrumental in forwarding the game. And Tom Coughlin, every story you hear about that gentleman is very similar to what you just said. Michael Strahan didn't understand him at first, and then he grew to love the man. I don't want to speak for Michael, but he's very public about that. Yep. And speaking of Strahan, that was his last game. I mean, there's just so many subplots to that wonderful day in Glendale, Arizona. It was just so many things, right, David?
It was, and I think he was easier to receive because I had a hard, similar coach in Paul Pasqualoni at Syracuse. So it kind of reminded me, but he was definitely more. He wasn't really relational. He was more polished than Paul Pasqualoni. I would say that more polished, more clear, more direct, and so it wasn't hard to receive. But what was beautiful to watch was that Super Bowl year. Everybody talks about, it's well told how he started listening to the players. It was the leadership council. So then we watched him grow. Man, you're talking about somebody who's in their 60s and we're watching him grow. I mean, like, how powerful is that to make changes knowing that the right way to do something? And that is what made us not just a successful team who could make the playoffs or win a division, but actually win a Super Bowl. And I think it was that caused my admiration. But I had no problem with authority. I think it was difficult for everybody that first year just because it was swift changes from Fossil to Coughlin. It was like polar opposites. But when you understood everything was principle, and he was consistent in messaging and consistent in lifestyle and consistent in application, so it made him extremely integrous, and you had to respect it.
Love that, David. I just love the way you said that. All right, you ready for the all-star moments? Let's go.
Give it to me, baby.
How do you deal with adversity?
Honestly, I pray. I have a great group of relationships, and I make sure that I'm insulated with the right thoughts, right mindset, and I plow through. I expect to overcome.
2, how do you give yourself fuel? You have 7 children. You're a busy man. You're running businesses. How do you stay alert and going at all times?
This has been part of the journey, especially in the entrepreneurial season. But what I will say, I have really learned better to prioritize myself. Being the anchor of the family. So, I've gotten back into healthier routines. I've always been respectably healthy with food, but working out, things of that nature.
What does never give up mean to you?
Man, exactly what it says. Don't quit. Every reward is there for us. The two things are commitment and sacrifice. Be willing to commit until you see it through to the end. Any dream that you're pursuing, any goal that you're pursuing, it's about your commitment and your willingness to sacrifice, and don't quit. So that's what it means.
What's the value of collaboration?
The value of collaboration is multiplication. Again, newer lesson for me coming into the marketplace as an entrepreneur, the necessity in any capacity to ensure that you're collaborating and finding key partnerships.
Last one. Describe yourself as a leader in one sentence.
I'm a transformational leader who loves God and exists to serve people.
That, my friend, is a mic drop or a helmet drop.
Helmet drop. Drop the helmet, baby.
Yes.
All the way in the Hall of Fame. Thanks so much.
David, this has been wonderful. Thank you. This is absolutely wonderful. I really appreciate it.
No, man, it's been a pleasure, man.
And we thank David very much for being on the show. My number one takeaway is this. Often on this podcast, we talk about overcoming adversity, and it works perfectly. Those are the stories that I believe, I bet you agree, and I know our guests agree, resonate because it gives us tools to get better in life. But what happens when something incredible happens to you, just like it did to David Tyree with the helmet catch? Well, imagine that, a worldwide stage, and David performs at the highest level, making one of the most memorable catches in sports history. Not just catches, but singular moments. So David said it took him a while to process that. And now he's an inspiration to people, finding their voice, finding their unique talents, how they best can contribute in life, being the best versions of themselves. I think that is outstanding and worth sharing, and I applaud David for doing so. A couple of footnotes from that moment. That was the last catch of David Tyree's career. And number 2, the Patriots were favored by 12 points in that game, and the Giants beat them 17-14. What a moment to remember. Thank you very much for being part of the show. We appreciate it. Football week on Keep the Line Moving. We'll see you next time, everybody. Every week, you hear guests on this podcast talk about some of their biggest leadership challenges. As a leader, you want to make an impact on those you lead and reach your organization's goals, while also optimizing your time management. Wherever you are in your leadership journey, we could all use some help. This is what we focus on with our group and individual coaching services. To book a call or get more information, email me directly at chrisg@garganoleadership.com or visit our website at garganoleadership.com. For our podcast and video producer, Jack Radutsky, and our marketing coordinator, Savin Narwal, have a great week, everybody.